very productive because we had a very full presentation on the year-end report of our goals for this current school year with some very in-depth before and after because we had a very full presentation. Echo there?
Yeah, it's all set.
Thanks. And this document with the before and after data points that demonstrate the real progress in each of the goals that we set last year is going to be available for the public. And I really recommend that folks take a chance to look through it and really see all the work that's been done in the past year. We also met in executive session last week to have a board discussion to review and rate the superintendent on her performance in each of those goals. The summary document of that review, as well as the overall rating, will also be made public very soon. So tonight, as a continuation of last week, we are going to turn our attention to look ahead at the upcoming school year, starting with the recommended goals and expectations for the superintendent for the 2022-23 school year. The draft of those goals has been shared internally and will be presented to the public tonight before the board votes on it. So again, thank you for being here. We'll get our meeting started with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and thank you to our young scholars for leading us in the pledge once again. Before we go into the presentation of the upcoming goals for the school year, we do have an opportunity for public comment. If you are here attending from the public and would like to make a comment, please use the hand raise function in Zoom, and we will elevate you to speak. Okay, can we start with Mary?
Sure, yep. Okay, Mary, you can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is Mary Jordan of the Norwalk Federation of Teachers, 9 Mile Avenue in Norwalk. I had previously sent to the board members a preliminary version of our summer check-in, which is a repeat of the October survey that we had discussed. As a result of that survey, we find the results troubling. We would propose that we must move forward to develop better and stronger professional relationships with our leadership. Great leaders hire great people and then support and empower them to do their jobs. And that is not what we see happening. We see micromanagement. We see a lack of trust and collaboration. We see overwork from over-optimistic and very aggressive goals. 76% of our members agree that they are completely overwhelmed, and that won't change anytime soon. We need to do better than that. This is better than the 80% in October, but it's not okay. It has been intense, unforgiving, exhausting, and not like any other district. There is very little praise given. Effective professional relationships are built on trust, collaboration, communication, and appropriate goals. Such relationships allow for all members to grow and remain invested in the work. Instead, 73% of our members do not feel that the district cares about retaining capable employees. They say they are treated as if they are expendable. They are told that they are replaceable, out loud, publicly. Finally, we recognize that there is haste to implement change. Our children don't have a single day to waste. We know that. 70% of our members do not feel that the district cares about providing excellent service to students. Otherwise, there would be two-way communication. There would be co-planning for co-teaching. There would be better planning time and more engaging materials, developmentally appropriate. Poorly planned, poorly understood change creates unnecessary problems all by itself, even when the change is good. Highly paid consultants continually advise NPS that co-teaching requires co-planning, and yet 69% of our respondents, hundreds of teachers who co-teach, have no time to co-plan. The roller coaster is disruptive. The drama is draining. The revolving door at central office and in our building leadership is dizzying. Repairing, rebuilding, and maintaining relationships requires time. It requires effort. It is time well spent. Our children deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, I see Ileana Zuniga.
Good evening. My name is Ileana Zuniga. I live in 8 Running Brook Lane, and I'm a proud parent of an incoming 9th grader to CGS and a 11th grader in PTech. Tonight, I just want to quickly address, actually, as a parent, how excited I am to have Dr. Estrella as our superintendent in the district. As a Latino woman, it's incredible to see a woman of color in a leadership position that has worked so hard to engage our community. We all know that parenting is not education is not only a responsibility of educators, but also of parents. And I think Dr. Estrella has worked really, really hard on reaching out to parents and engaging them, making them a part of the equation, giving them accessibility of communications, letting them know what's happening, and being there to speak and answer any questions. That effort alone has really opened the gate for parents to feel they have a say in the matter and know where to go for help. The multiple actions she's taken have been bold and very much needed for this community. The Family Welcome Center, the career fairs that we saw, saving time and effort for parents to decide what programs their children were going to use, Spanish communication channel in social media to keep parents informed. I could go on and on. I'm just asking all of you to please keep in mind that a lot of our parents are very thankful for the efforts. Many of our parents don't have the ability to speak up because of a language barrier, or maybe they're just afraid of being in a public forum. But as a founder of Latinos Unidos Norwalk that has over 3,000 members, I can tell you that the sentiment resonates along this group of people, and we're very proud to have her as our superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Estrella, for everything you've done and worked so hard for our children. Good evening.
Thank you, Ileana. Next, I see Tyler Fairburn.
Hey, Colin, members of the board, thank you for having me. My name is Tyler Fairbairn, and I am at 35 King Street. I'm trying to make this as quick as I can. It's bedtime for my 3-year-old, and based on the sounds coming from her room, she's going to try to work me for a couple more bedtime story books. So as you know, members of the board, I emailed you earlier this week, or I'm sorry, it was late last week, just trying to get some clarification. In looking at the agenda for tonight and the kind of article from around this same time last year when superintendent was given an extension, I emailed you just to find out if that was something that was on the table. It was just a question I had, not any comments on the merits of that, but just, is that happening tonight? And I didn't get a response, and I sent another email and got a response saying, why are you asking about this? And then eventually an email along the lines of, there are contract negotiations and they're private, and I get that. And, I'm not in any way suggesting that, you open up executive session and put it on Zoom or something like that for a contract negotiation. But to me, it's an important thing that if you're going to solicit public comment on, should be made available to the public, right? Like, you have item 2A on here is approval of the collective bargaining agreement with some of the unions from 7/1/22 through 6/30/26. Presumably that's not something that compromises those negotiations. It's just a basic bit of information. So, my comment is not really on the merits of whether there's going to be an extension or a raise or whatever that is. It's really about the process, which as I've told you guys, I think is not working. I think it's not transparent enough. And, the perception, and unless you guys do something to dispel that perception, which has not happened, is that is happening tonight. And you don't really want public comment on it, because it's silly for me to offer comment or anyone to offer comment when we don't even know if it's going to happen. So, I think that that's something that can be done better. If that's a change to the bylaws or if that's a change to how things operate, I think that's something you guys should discuss and seriously put into place sooner rather than later. More transparency is better than less transparency. I've received emails on issues from individual board members in the past, and this time I was told, no, they can't do that. It's got to come through the board chair. So more consistency, more transparency. And I think, Colin, one of the unintended consequences of this, and I don't know if it's something you guys have considered, is that, I've come out every year since my youngest has been in kindergarten to the council meetings to advocate for more funding for the schools every year. She's going into fifth grade, and, I've been doing it since pre-COVID when we did it in person, and I've come out on Zoom to do it. It becomes increasingly difficult to do that when there's a perception that things are not being operated on the level and things are not being made available to the public. And I've had discussions with council members who've not been supportive of funding the schools. And that's been their argument. Ralph, I'm gonna wrap it up so soon. I gotta go read some books anyway. So I really wish that you would kind of consider the ripple effects of this. And I think we can do better moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Good luck with bedtime. Next, I see Joe Genderko. Joe, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
There you are. Yep, we can hear you.
Good evening, members of the board. Joseph Janderko, 9 Mott Avenue, Norwalk Federation of Teachers. As Mary had spoke so eloquently at the beginning of the meeting, I'm just here to kind of back up some of what she had to say. I'm going to read to you comments that the silent majority of the teachers have expressed to us in the surveys that we've conducted. So please just bear with me for a moment, but I'll begin. The first comment is, the district has so much turnover in central office that they really have no relationship with the staff in the schools. Everything is a numbers game, not a personal relationship, although they expect us to develop that with students. It would be great if central office could practice what they preach. Another comment reads, they control the schedules, what to teach, from what resources, and take away almost every ounce of creativity out of teaching. This indicates that very few people are interested in teacher retention at the district level. Please treat us to be good teachers. We do this work because we believe in the profession. Stop taking away our ability to be creative, flexible, and actually provide what we know our students need. Another comment reads, the district gives increasingly time-consuming and unrealistic demands, but gives no time to comply. Another comment from another teacher reads, many are just tired of all the stress, distrust, and micromanagement. If there was a true spirit of working together, maybe we would stay. One of the last comments that I'll read is about a teacher who resigned this year. And she wrote, I have resigned my position this year and I'm leaving Norwalk. When I notified my administrator that I was looking to leave, they did not seem to care. They did not ask me why I was leaving or give any indication that they wished me to stay. They said, just tell me what I need to know and when I need to know it. Later in the year, in late April, my principal asked to meet with me. He asked if I was planning to be here next year. I said I did not plan on it, and his response simply was, okay, then please resign immediately so I can fill your position. At no time this year did I feel as if my administrator valued me as an employee or cared about my position in the school. And finally, the last comment I really want to share, which Mary hinted upon and a lot of other teachers have mentioned to me, to Mary, and to others in leadership roles is, and this is a direct quote from a teacher, it is well known within my building that every teacher is replaceable. This is a repeated mantra from the administration. And what this goes to show is this is not a national issue, as some people had mentioned at the last meeting. This is not just a Fairfield County issue about teacher retention. This is a local Norwalk issue. And we need central office and the Board of Education to do a better job of working with us to accomplish the goals that we need to for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next, I see a hand from Sarah L.
Hello, hi, it's Sarah Lemieux. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Sarah. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I have a couple of things to say. Had written an email to the board in support of extending Dr. Estrella's contract. But I have also been listening to what some other commenters have been saying, and I wanted to be a little responsive too, if that's okay, but I'll keep it under 3 minutes. So first in the email, I had just wanted to say that I think that we're so lucky to have had Dr. Estrella as our superintendent over the past few years, especially during COVID, and that we're even luckier that she wants to stay because she's skilled and experienced in collaborative leadership. The way that she approaches organizational change is student-centered, and she works in a way that I have always perceived to be relationship building and a spirit of outreach and identification of partnerships and outside funding sources. And these are really functional operational things. And she also leads with a message that is positive and inclusive and hopeful. And I think that that's also really striking, especially now. But I also wanted to say, I'm a teacher myself, and I don't teach in Norwalk. I teach in a different district, but the problems that teachers are having are the same everywhere. Teachers feeling replaceable, teachers feeling overworked, teachers feeling like they're not having room to be creative. These are systemic issues, and they're systemic issues all over America, but in Connecticut also, because we have regulations, we have assessment metrics that are tied to the funding that we get. And there really is not as much room for people to make changes, even in positions of leadership, as like the common person would think. And so I think we're very lucky to have Dr. Estrella making as much room as possible for as much change as is possible. And if we want to see more systemic changes that are more supportive of educators and of families, that we need to advocate at the state and federal level to make more change more legally and financially possible for school systems. These are, systemic issues, and systemic issues don't change no matter who's in the leadership seat. And I also say that with the perspective as somebody who's been in Norwalk for, I think, 12 years now and seen a really silly amount of superintendents in that time. We had a revolving door for a while, and the revolving door was not good for the system. I'm sorry. And so I think, Dr. Estrella as a unique leader is wonderful. And also the stability that extending her contract would provide would also be really great too. Thank you so much for your time and service.
Thank you, Sarah. Finally, Kevin Mullins.
Hi there. Thank you for the time. My intention, so I'm Kevin Mullins. I live at 158 Strawberry Hill Avenue. 3 kids have come through the Norwalk public school systems. I pastor a church in Norwalk where I have the ability to, or the opportunity to speak to and have as a part of our congregation, teachers' aides, central office employees, administrators, both within the Norwalk public school system, but also in surrounding New York, Connecticut, all over. And so my intention for just this couple of minutes is to speak in favor of doing everything we can to keep Dr. Estrella in place as long as possible. I do believe that the unique challenge of the time that she was hired should be something that's always kept in mind, specifically coinciding with COVID and all the challenges that's presented. I know for a fact that the things that are spoken of by the teachers from the Federation of Teachers of the exhaustion, which we identify with, and we spend a lot of time as a church praying about exhaustion and the turnover, are certainly systemic issues. I have two teachers in my church that are not a part of the Norwalk public school system. One that decided to retire 2 years early, and one that decided to quit teaching altogether. And so I know this is not something that's unique to Norwalk. This is the reason I'm even on this is I know this is the time of year that there would be talks about extensions. I believe it'd be to our advantage for all of the reasons that several others have listed to keep Dr. Estrella in place as long as possible. I would identify with frustration as it relates to the amount of superintendents. I've lived here since 2007. I think that the amount of superintendents we've had in place is ridiculous. I believe there's a level of toxicity that's related to that revolving door that I would love for it to see our Board of Education and those of us that vote for the Board of Education try to reverse that trend of not keeping our superintendents in place. I think the continuity that would come along with and the confidence that's related to that continuity, and also specifically the funding that we need outside of the district, outside of the city, the funding that we needed is always improved by continuity of leadership. And so for all of those reasons, I would just really recommend we do everything. And I also would identify with the gentleman that spoke about the transparency of the process. I'm not always aware of when the right time to speak about these things are. So I'm just so glad I had the opportunity to be here tonight to speak and on behalf of Dr. Estrella or in support of Dr. Estrella being extended. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally, I see the last hand from Rocio Rivera.
Yeah, I think there are two people that are trying to actually raise their hand too as well. So I'll promote them in a moment, just a second. But Rokio is next. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Rocio, you can unmute now.
Sí, buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Sí, la escuchamos. Gracias. Ok, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Rocío Rivera. Tengo 2 hijos en las escuelas públicas de Norwalk. Antes que nada, quiero agradecerle a la doctora Estrella por todo su trabajo que ha hecho para nosotros, no solo para nuestros hijos, sino también para nosotros como padres. Antes nosotros, bueno, yo era una de las madres que no participaba en las reuniones que había en las escuelas, especialmente o en el City Hall o en las reuniones que hay, pero ahora no tengo miedo de participar porque sé que ella nos escucha a nosotros como hispanos y también ella nos da esa oportunidad de expresarnos en nuestro idioma. Entonces quiero agradecerle mucho por eso y por todo el trabajo que ha hecho para nosotros y para nuestros hijos. Gracias.
May I do a quick translation?
If you may, please, Diana. Thank you.
I didn't catch completely everything, but she says she has 2 children in the Norwalk Public Schools. She's very thankful for all the work and everything that Dr. Estrella has done. She was a mom that never participated in any of the school events, but because of the translation and all the resources, she is not afraid to come out of the shadows and participate. And she hopes that she stays, and she's thankful for everything she's done for the families of Norwalk.
Thank you, Rocio, and thank you, Diana.
Next is Laura Garcia.
Hi, Laura.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Laura Garcia. I'm a local parent in Norwalk. I still have one apartment in Norwalk, and I just moved to Ansonia. But I see the difference between Norwalk and Ansonia, and I'm here because I'm appreciate Dr. Estrella and all the change that she made in Norwalk for our kids, for our Hispanic kids, and for the brown community. I know all the change that she made with the translation services. She made a lot. So I can't imagine the life of the kids without her. And I'm really grateful for her, for Diana, and for all of those who work hard for all our kids, especially our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And finally, I see Johanna Estrella. No relation.
Joanna, you can speak. You can unmute.
Johanna, ¿estás ahí? Puedes hablar.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Estrella. Thank you for everything you have done. And I hope you stay with us for longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. Appreciate brevity. And thank you to everyone from the public who offered comments tonight. I want to acknowledge also everyone who emailed in comments to the Board of Ed public comments email. Those comments will be added to the record of this meeting as well. Seeing no more people raising their hands for public comment, we'll move on to the next item in our agenda, starting with our business items and the approval of the collective bargaining agreement with the Connecticut Healthcare Associates National Union and Healthcare Employees, AFSCME, AFL-CIO from 7/1/22 to 6/30/26. This is one in a series of union contracts that has come up for renegotiation. I don't know if it's Dr. Estrella or Lizette, if there's anything that is noteworthy about this one before we vote.
I just, I'll turn it over to Ms. Colon, but I think it's important to note how great it was to collaborate with the nurses union. I know I observed the team working in connection with all of the members that led this negotiation. And it was a really informative, collaborative process. I want to thank our nurses for the outstanding work that they've done in the midst of this pandemic, the tireless hours that they've worked to support our families and children when they needed them the most. And their commitment to the work was evident as we engaged in this negotiation. I know Ms. Colon can speak more to it, but I just observing the conversations and the interactions, it was quite a pleasant experience. And we're just honored to continue to work with them. And I think we need to elevate and recognize all the work that they've done in the scope of these past few years, because it was not easy for them. And Saturday, Sunday, 24 hours a day, they were there with us, making sure we engaged in contact tracing, that we could open up schools, even when we were notified at 9, 10 o'clock at night that we had some positive cases. So I think before we go into the approval, we need to take a moment to just recognize the outstanding work that the group of nurses did in support of our children. And Ms. Colon, do you have anything to add?
The only thing that I like to add is that just as the technician's contract being at the forefront of everything, as the superintendent has stated, I want to just piggyback on what she stated, that this was a great opportunity to get to meet the nurses, and it was very collaborative, very amazing group of individuals and employees. And so it went well. And with that, unless anyone has any direct questions in particular to this contract, I'm totally in favor of approving as we negotiate it.
Thank you, Ms. Colon and Dr. Estrella. I want to recognize Mary Ellen's hand.
I would just like to add my admiration and a true thanks to every nurse in our town that helped us with the educational complex issues. And it comes from my heart. I'm very thankful.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen.
If there are no questions, then through the superintendent, I ask the board that you please approve the contract that was negotiated in good faith.
Thank you, Ms. Colon. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this contract? Erica? Okay, Erica, seconded by Godfrey. Pardon my sore throat tonight. Is there any further discussion on this particular contract? Seeing none, I will call it to a vote. All in favor of approving this contract, please say aye or raise your hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, it's Janine. Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay, great. I think that's unanimous. And so it is approved, and I want to echo the thanks to our nurses. It's been a very tough time, to say the very least, and we could not have done it without them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the presentation of the 2023 Superintendent Recommended Goals and Metrics.
Thank you, Chairman Austin. So as we discussed last week when we presented the evidence of how we met and exceeded the goals set forward for the 21-22 academic school year, we wanted to take the opportunity to propose some of the recommended goals for the 22-23 academic year. One of the things that I need to note is that all of our goals are directly linked and tied to our strategic plan. Last year, we set 6, Ralph, can you click? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. We identified 6 areas of focus in terms of our goals, which are articulated here. Our first goal was to strengthen individualized student success plans. Our second goal was focus on business and operations, really looking at a 3 to 5 year facilities plan, but most importantly, further extending that and thinking about capital improvements in collaboration with the city and other legislative officials that we will continue to speak more in depth as the academic school year progresses. Goal 3, really interconnecting the work that happens in human resource, finance, business, and operations, and making sure that within every element and every goal that we are infusing multiple departments so that no one is working in silos, but in tandem with one another. And I think that was very evident when we presented our goals for the 21-22 academic school year, where you were able to see the number of departments working together to accomplish the different goals throughout the scope of our work. Our fourth goal was focused around leadership development, really cultivating instructional leaders, moving from a management frame of mind to an instructional frame of mind, making sure that professional development opportunities, not only for our school leaders, but for our teachers and other personnel, for example, paraeducators, making sure that they also had opportunities to enhance their capacity to most effectively support students. Our fifth goal focused around development and improvement of instructional models. One, to well align our instructional programs to the standards set by the state, but also ensuring that in the approach that we take upon is of highest quality and caliber. And finally, our sixth goal is focused around family supports and making sure that not only our families have access to our educational system, but that they have equitable opportunities to access these resources. And this is where the Family Center will become an instrumental hub for us to continue to further elaborate in this goal for years to come. One, by opening opportunities to enhance access to systematic change, provide information around the resources available to our families, and provide them guidance in how to access this information so that they can make the best informed instructional educational decisions for their children and families. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Pennington, who will speak in greater detail around Goal 1 for the 22-23 academic school year.
Good evening, members of the board. Nice to see everyone again. So as we look into next year, goal 1 focuses on strengthening the individual student success plans, and we broke it down into different components. One of those components is centered around curriculum professional development. And so as we look to next year, by June 2023, the curricula team and teachers will rewrite 4 curricular programs. And we started that this year in literacy and math, and now we're looking to expand into other areas, i.e. business education, world language, 12th grade ELA electives, and social studies. And we want to continue to revise the units that we already worked on this year. Another goal that we are focused on is around our pre-K programs. So we want 100% of our pre-K programs will implement a centers-based curricula across all content areas. And that's especially with the expansion of the South Norwalk School and adding in 2 NPS pre-K programs. By June 23, 90% of the teachers will participate in a minimum of 4 district-wide professional development days to improve teacher practice and student outcomes as measured on NWEA and district-wide interim assessments. And we have already planned out our professional development for next year, and it's interconnected to the work happening with principals, with coaches, with improvement teachers. Next. So another area is around developing teacher professional capacity to teach reading. And we talked about the letters training that we started this year. And our goal is that by the end of next year, we will have 90 teachers who will have gone through that training. 60 will graduate with all 4 units of study, and 30 will have units 1 and 2 completed by the end of next year. We are also going to have 95% of our staff participate in an introduction to dyslexia training. So that is built out for in October, and we're really excited to continue to build our capacity for supporting our students. In terms of SRBI, 90% of schools will continue to build common language to develop and establish closer alignment with SRBI practices. And we are going to measure that by a decrease in the students required for summer academy. So we're continuing to build out that support K-8, and we are looking to advance into the high school as well. In terms of SEL and counseling, 100% of our schools will have counseling support next year, and will implement counseling guidelines tied to the American School Counselor Association model, which is the ASCA model. And we're really excited to be able to expand our counseling supports into elementary school. By June 20. Absolutely.
Sorry, too. One of the things that I want to highlight is that Mr. Pennington and I have been working with Mid-Fairfield Guidance, given the feedback that we receive from the board, as well as school leaders and teachers and other personnel about the need of additional interventions at the middle school level, where we were seeing some of the highest spikes in terms of SEL support needed. So we are really happy to inform the board that we're seeking to have an additional 5 providers coming in through Mid-Fairfield Guidance to provide additional therapeutic support for our students. So the support is going to be focused around preventative care, and we are looking to have 1 provider at every single middle school. At CMS, we will have also a provider there, and that provider will serve the school, the CMS community, and also serve the role of supervising the interventions and preventative care that we're hoping to put in place for the 22-23 academic school year.
And that's an expansion of the work we started this year at the high schools. So we're excited to continue that opportunity to grow. We're also going to be revising the health and PE program with an emphasis on social emotional learning practices. And one of the pieces that happened last year was that the state revised health and PE curricula, and we are going through the process this year where we will be doing the same to really make those SEL practices embedded in the daily work that happens in our health and PE classes. We are also going to continue to expand our SEL initiatives we started this year We discussed the Wingman initiative that happened at the high school. That will be happening. That will be expanding to middle schools, and even in elementary school, we'll be piloting next year. The work with the Triangle community, and then our K-8 SEL resource of Second Step, really moving into phase 2 of that work to support all of our students. And then in terms of specialized learning, we have a big task for next year, and that is we're transitioning to the CT-SEDS platform. And one of the layers of that is also going to be the parent workshops that comes with CT-SEDS, because it is a live platform for parents to be able to see up-to-date information, and really we'll be working with our parents on that transition. We also want to implement year 2 of the 2020 audit, and we're going to focus on 4 of the key domains around coherence, missed service hours, the idea that specialized learning is a service and not a place, and really focusing on mindset. And with that, I will transition to Sandra Feos.
Thank you, Rob, and good evening, board. Nice to see everybody again this evening. And I will begin to share our goals for developing the 3 to 5 year facilities plan, inclusive of an annual building-based facilities plan and scoreboards in conjunction with the city's capital budget and 5-year capital plan. It's exciting to be sharing this information with you and to see actually the evolution from this year's goals into next year's. So by June.
Ms. Bales, I think that Ms. Randolph has a question. She has her hand raised.
Hi, yes, sorry. I had a question for Mr. Pennington. I was just wondering, when we were talking about the changes or the work that's going to be done on the curriculum next year, are there new things that are going to be rolled out for next year, or it's all besides the IEP plan with CT-SEDS? Is there things that are going to be rolled out next year, or it's more the progress of the work?
In terms of the 4 areas of curricula, we are going to be revising those units of study with the teachers. So like business education, health and PE, looking at 12th grade elective courses. So we're going to be completely revamping those units of study. So it's going to be.
Those are happening this summer.
We have started this summer, correct?
I think, Janine, in terms of your question, I think you're referring to Wonders and the math curricula. Those will be a continuation of the work that we started this year. One of the things that we've heard from our educators is that there has not been any opportunities, particularly in those areas that Rob articulated, to really revise and improve curricula. And when new personnel entered these departments, they wanted to make sure that they had resources to share so that they had a starting point to plan. So these past 2 weeks, we've had a number of educators in central office supporting the team in developing and refining the units of study so that all content areas within the high schools have material to work with. And that we build symmetry across the 2 high schools so that regardless of where a student is at, if they're taking an English course, for instance, it is the content is the same. The variation in which teachers put in their unique flavor into the content is their own, but at least the standards that are being taught are consistent across the organization.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry, Ms. Feos.
That's okay. Thank you so much. So I'll begin with our first bullet, which is that by June 2023, the facilities department will develop building-specific action plans for improving facilities, which includes training for maintenance staff. And this will be based on already the great ratings that we got this year, but the improvements that will be needed for the upcoming year. By June 2023, the Facilities Department will also have a plan for securing additional resources for maintenance and preventative care for all school facilities in accordance with the efficiency study. And by June 2023, the Facilities Department will develop a plan for the Tier 1 projects in collaboration with the city, which right now is our favorite thing to do. Ralph? And I'm going to pass it over to Lisette Colon.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, so with our goals in human resources, we will be enhancing and streamlining processes. By June 2023, the Human Resources Department will reduce the processing time for HR transactions and enhance staff experience through enhancements of the frontline system, which is a system that we utilize for onboarding and hiring new candidates into the system. We will also be expanding our HR legal expertise and support. So by June 2023, the Human Resources Department will maintain regular communication with key stakeholders on updated laws and legal interpretation to reduce district liability. In terms of the HR strategic plan, by June 2023, the HR department will expand the recruitment and marketing plan to attract applicants in line with district needs and increase that number of new applicants by 10%. In terms of staff retention, by June of 2023, the HR department will increase the retention by reducing staff turnover by 5%. And some of the things that we plan on doing next year is to develop ongoing staff roundtables, continue the meet and greet meetings with school staff and personnel, roll out a new beginning orientation for new administrator as they enter our district, and build on union partnerships to solve retention challenges by working through the problem and creating of solutions. The next slide. And now I will turn it over to Mr. Osmani, our CFO.
Thank you, Lizette. I'm happy to share this goal with my colleagues, Lizette and Sandra. It's a really good collaborative effort. Among the goals that we have for finance is continuing some of the work that we began this year. As you know, this year we transitioned in our student-based budget. We started incorporating multilingual learners as part of the school-based budget expenses so that we can appropriately identify where those expenses are. Next year, we're going to enhance that by including our special education. Currently, as you know, special education is budgeted centrally. And what we're looking to do next year is to start budgeting that at the school base as well, the resources to follow the needs. And therefore, we would have a better picture of where the needs are. And I think we're excited to be doing that. The other thing that we're also going to do next year internally within the finance department is implement an automated procurement system. As you know, we are a $250 million annual operation. Many of our systems are still paper. And therefore, we're looking to use the tools that we already have within our existing financial system to automate that system. We actually have a task force that works with the city finance and Board of Ed finance. We've actually started working on this together with our system upgrade. So we are excited to be collaborating with our city partners to automate the systems, not just on the Board of Ed side, but on the city side as well. We have similar challenges when it comes to automating our processes. And then the other element I also talked about was in terms of budgeting and allocating dollars to the schools, we are looking to implement a student allocation system. This is a best practice. Many other school districts do this, is identifying the number of students in schools and appropriately resourcing the schools with the needs. So for example, we know every school needs a principal, every school needs an assistant principal. But in addition to that, we've talked about, school counselors and all of those other elements, resources that are needed to assist our children in their learning. So we would be looking at implementing a student allocation system so that there's consistency between all the schools and every child is appropriately resourced regardless of what school they attend. And then finally, this is something that came out of our efficiency study. And Norwalk is fortunate that we have some generous parents who engage in trying to assist and offset costs for our schools. And so we have multiple student activity accounts that provide assistance through our SGCs and our PTAs, just additional resources to allow our students to learn and to provide them much needed resources. And so one of the things that was recommended, and we concur, is that we do need to have a better way of managing the student activity accounts. And we have already started that process, and we look forward to having that completed by June of next year. And I will toss it back to my colleague, Ms. Fayos.
Thank you, Lunda. Thank you so much. And our recommended goals for school safety for the upcoming year is really building on some of the systems that we have already put in place this year. And one of them is that we, in collaboration with IT, we will identify and put in place an incident reporting platform that interfaces directly with PowerSchool and actually offers actionable data for school leaders on behavior management. This is so that school leaders understand the patterns of behaviors that are occurring at their school, and they can actually react to them in a timely fashion rather than through a monthly report. Another one is that by June of 2023, in collaboration with the Director of School Counseling, we will provide professional development on improving and maintaining positive school climate. We don't want to just have all the goals be for technical operational, but also in training and providing schools, staff, and families support on maintaining positive school culture. And finally, by June 2023, the operations department will increase the security infrastructure. This is thanks to the additional allocation for school safety in our capital budget. So we will start to implement phase 1 of door alarms and added cameras. And we're in the process of actually getting quotes and better understanding what those needs are. And what we do understand is that it's going to be multiple phases. And that is it for me.
As a follow-up to the PowerSchool, I think I heard Dr. Estrella say that we're going to be able to start to implement IEP in terms of service hours in PowerSchool. Maybe a plug-in.
So yes, one of the advantages of the new system is that it will provide live information for our families around the service hours provided. If there's a situation where there is a lapse of service, how many hours would have to be made up? I know that that was one of your concerns, Ms. De Palma, at one point, is making sure, particularly through the pandemic, that we had a system in place to really allow transparent communication with the parents and really understanding lapse of service if that existed, and knowing when those services are being made up. So the system will provide the ability for parents to have the most accurate, up-to-date information once we're fully operational.
Yeah, and Dr. Estrella, I would say that that's actually in partnership with the CT SED system, which is being.
That's what I was talking about. Thank you, Ralph.
And will
Did I miss anything?
Will it flag for teachers, general ed teachers, that service hours are being missed, that they need to escalate that?
Ralph, the question is, would it flag for teachers if a service hour is being missed?
I'm not sure on that, but we can get back to you and find out with an answer on that.
Thank you. And my last question is, will we have a rollout plan just to educate parents that that's now available to monitor?
So one of the things that we will be doing next year is through the Family Center is providing targeted focused workshops for families in special education, multilingual learner services, and different, like the choice process, so on and so forth. So we will have a number of learning opportunities for our families to help them understand the system, how to access it, and utilize it at its fullest potential.
Great,
we are looking to have multiple trainings, especially at the beginning of the year, because it's just going to be a shift. into the new system. So we want to provide as many parents the opportunity to learn about it. It is supposed to be a very intuitive system, which I think is great. So it'll be easy for parents to navigate, but we really want to be able to provide that to the community. So we'll have constant trainings so that if you can't come to one, you might be able to come to the next one.
That's great. Long time coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
And good evening, Board 2. And I'll talk about a couple of other goals in Goal 3. When we look at enhancing our communications in conjunction with the Communications Department, we are going to, one of our first goals is by January of 2023, 100% of the school and district sites will have an updated template for better navigation. So we've heard this loud and clear, that we want to kind of adjust the way that our templates look. Once the communication department is in place and moving forward over the summer, we'll be looking at the implementation to actually change our templates. And we are planning on having that done midway through the year. We are also making sure that in regards to social media, by January of 2023, all schools will be posting a minimum of 6 posts a month related to their school programs, activities, etc. And we'll be measuring this through a data collection tool, a management tool we have called Hootsuite, to be able to assure that we're implementing that effectively. In the area of research and analytics, in partnership with the Equity and Excellence Department, we plan on by May 20 of 23, 100% of our schools will be monitoring improvement as deemed by the metrics that will be defined through our partnership with the RISE network.
And I'll take it from there. Thanks, Ralph. Good evening, members of the board. So goal 4 is about instructional leadership, and 2 important levers of instructional leadership are professional learning and feedback to teachers. So the first goal focuses on professional learning at the school level. As part of the school improvement plan, principals and their instructional leadership teams will develop and facilitate a minimum of 4 professional learning cycles focused on our data-driven instruction priority and also scaffolds for meeting the needs of diverse learners, resulting in improved outcomes for subgroups on NWA and district-wide interim assessments. Our second goal really focuses on the feedback and support to teachers. So by June 2023, 100% of our school-based administrative teams will engage in a minimum of 5 calibration processes to ensure that the feedback and the support that's being provided to teachers is aligned, actionable, and timely to achieve increased accuracy in the calibration.
Good. Okay, then I'll take the next one. Thank you, Mary Ann. The next part of our goal that has to do with cultivating instructional leadership has to do with these cycles of improvement. And as we had said before, by June 2023, 90% of our schools will have engaged in a minimum of 1 cycle of support to improve teacher practices and student outcomes as measured on NWEA and district-wide interim assessments. And I'm going to turn it now over to Lisette, who—
Thank you, Dr. Case.
Yeah.
With the HR-related leadership and development, one of the things that we are definitely going to accomplish by June 2023 is 100% of our principals will engage in a minimum of 3 HR-related professional learning sessions to ensure that all regulations regarding staffing and staff protocols are implemented with fidelity in all of our schools. Thank you so much. I'll turn it over to the STEAM learning area for Goal 5.
Great. Thank you, Lisette. So as you remember, as Dr. Stray mentioned earlier, our Goal 5 was looking at improving our programming options. Our goals for this coming year is to enhance and continue the work in STEAM learning. By April 2023, 100% 2 grade levels will have implemented new STEAM integrated units of study. And these will be measured through pre and post tests that will be used for each one of those units. We also are going to be launching our Future Ready Schools programs and enhancing our Twilight program, as well as looking at our virtual options. So by June, one way we're going to be measuring this is by June of 2023, we plan on having 85% of the classes taken by students to have a minimum grade point average of 2.5. And by June of 2023, 100% of all K-8 students will have received instruction in digital citizenship, and research skills that'll be measured through the administration of pre and post assessments. And this will be done in conjunction with our new library and media specialists that'll be in each one of our buildings.
Mary Ellen Flaherty.
Hey, my question is back with Mary Ann about the teacher feedback. Mary Ann, could you elaborate a little bit on what types of questions the teachers would be answering, or how that feedback would work?
Sure. So just to clarify, we're talking about feedback to teachers, not necessarily gathering feedback from teachers. So we know an important way of supporting teachers is by giving them very specific feedback that allows them to continue to grow and develop their practice. It's also like a really important retention strategy that we know that people feel supported. And so we started this year with a calibration protocol, because if we have multiple administrators observing a teacher, we want to make sure that that feedback is building on each other with each visit. That, you know, one administrator is visiting and providing you feedback to do A, and then the next one is telling you to do B. We want to make sure that B is building on A. And so we established, Dr. Case and I, with our school leaders this year, a protocol to, with, you know, across the district, with all school leaders together, where we would watch teacher videos of practice coupled with a review of the lesson plan, and we would norm the feedback that we would provide to the teachers. And so year 2 is a continuation of this work, just to go deeper on really making sure that the feedback is those 3 words that you saw in there: specific, timely, and actionable, because you can't do everything all at once. So we want to make sure that we're identifying the most high leverage thing for the teacher to work on.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
I guess I'll jump in next. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everyone, members of the board and the Norwalk Public Schools community. I'll be talking about goal number 5 that specifically addresses developing and refining our instructional programming options to increase opportunities for students and to ensure all students have access to a high quality instruction and support. As well, the first goal is by June 2023, schools will develop and implement systems and structures for excellence that specifically deal with the idea around culturally responsive teaching, for example, equity specifically, that deals with the equity ambassadors, and inclusion such as mentorship and affinity groups to ensure that the needs of all students are met. By June 2023, the data analytics and evaluation team will facilitate the implementation of a district-wide data-driven culture through the management and supervision of each school's ability to understand and utilize data to drive instruction. By June 2023, professional development will be designed and coordinated in the areas of equity, social justice, and inclusion. By June 2023, also the workforce development team will create systems and structures to support the expansion of our current career pathways from K through 12. And finally, by June 2023, school and district staff will implement high instructional standards for all students as assessed by the support being provided to teachers and school leaders.
And last but not least, our final goal is focused around ensuring families are provided with equitable opportunities to access district resources and programs. A lot of these goals will be accomplished through the work that will happen through the Family Center. So by June 2023, MPS will increase parent traffic by 30% within the Family Center. This will be accomplished by expanding Family Center hours, incorporating a rotating schedule of community partners, including family navigators and other providers. We are partnering with local community providers as well as the city agency, particularly the Youth Service Department, to really have an array of services at the Family Center at the fingertips of our families. By June 2023, MPS will facilitate family workshops and roundtable discussions, resulting in improved understanding of our school system and initiatives. As articulated earlier, we will provide workshops around special education services, understanding the PPT process, understanding the new data systems to acquire information and stay informed of their children's progress. Also, by June 2023, our MPS will establish a health center connected to the Family Center to provide healthcare access to our students. As you know, at the beginning of the school year and intermittently throughout, many of our students need physical examinations, and that sometimes becomes challenging to find appointments or accessibility to healthcare. So we want to make sure that through the Family Center, we provide these services to our families where needed, and particularly during enrollment times, make it easy for our parents not only to complete the registration process, but also complete all of the external elements that are necessary to be fully enrolled. Finally, 100% of our schools will have standardized marketing materials that include videos for all schools and programs to use at the district choice fair. And also through this, implementing the recommendations of the communications audit that was recently presented to you to really inform the work that we need to do to most effectively communicate with our families and stakeholders. One of the things that is important as we look at these 6 goals is to have clear metrics by which we are measuring these goals by. So I would like to talk about the metrics that we will be looking, Ralph, the metrics that we are going to be looking at as we continue to inform our work. We will continue to look towards increasing graduation rate based on the 2020-2021 rate of 87.8%. We've made significant strides this year in terms of our graduation rate as presented last week, but we still have a lot of work to do, particularly within the different subgroups in the district. In particular, we are looking to increase the graduation rate for multilingual learners and students with disabilities, and using the benchmark from the 2020-21 rates for MLLs of 70.8 and SWDs of 69%. Although these numbers are not where we want to be, I have to note that we've made significant progress at a rate of close to 10% change between these 2 subgroups. And I think that's quite significant. And we have to attribute a lot of that success to Twilight and programming modifications that have been done to ensure that all students have access to quality programs that put them on a path to graduation. And with the work that we are going to be doing in this upcoming school year, we're looking to see even more success in these areas. We will also be looking at the metrics around the college and career readiness and ELA and math within the PSAT, and using the current benchmarks from 21-22 as the starting point, with the expectation that we will have increased those benchmarks in the 22-23 academic school year. We're also going to be looking at the proficiency rates in SBAC. Once we have those numbers from this past year, it will give us the target that we want to exceed for the upcoming school year. That's why, as you see, it has a red asterisk stating that it's pending state reporting. And the same we're looking at the next generation science standards in similar ways as SBAC. The next one, please. We will also be monitoring K-8 testing at or above the 61st percentile in reading and math for NUIA. And we're going to be using the 21-22 baseline in reading, 38% and 30% in math. And we will also look to increase looking at particular subgroups, particularly our MLLs, to demonstrate greater than average growth in reading towards NUIA towards the end of the year in the assessment, and increasing those percentage rates beyond 50 and 36% respectively. One of the things that we want to closely monitor, particularly because the pandemic had a significant impact in chronic absenteeism. We want to make sure that we reduce chronic absenteeism across the district for our students. We know that if students are not in school, their likelihood of being successful is limited, and we want to make sure that we take advantage of every minute that we have with them. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that they come to school. So once we have the final absenteeism rate for our district, we are looking to increase or exceed the rates that we have this current year. Our goal is to really reduce this significantly, because the more, like I said, our students are with us, the better able we are to effectively support them. We will also be looking to increase the percentage of favorable responses related to emotional regulation as measured in pre and post school climate survey results. It's going to be also really important as students are receiving therapeutic supports that we're constantly monitoring and assessing how those supports are effectively helping our students in addressing their social emotional needs and helping them reach a state of mind that helps them fully embrace their learning experience. In terms of digital citizenship, we have metrics to look at pre and post assessments and make sure that students are really mastering the digital citizenship curricula, particularly because we have all of these digital native students, and we want to make sure that they are behaving responsibly as they're utilizing these tools for their learning and outside of their learning environment. We are also seeking to increase the number of students who are transitioning to the least restrictive environment, who are receiving specialized services. And our current rate of inclusion is 73.3%. We're looking to exceed that percentage next year. So that concludes the recommended goals that we're hoping the board will approve. And we're seeking to utilize these goals as we continue to work with our principals in developing their school improvement plans. Our goal is that first and foremost, our strategic plan provides us with the scope of work that we need to do and focus on. And we utilize it to develop goals for the district. In turn, the school leaders then utilize the district goals to then develop their school-based goals, so that we have a direct alignment with within all of our priorities to our strategic plan to ensure that we meet our 3 to 5 year targets. I'll turn it over now to Chairman Hostin.
Thank you, Dr. Estrella, and thank you to the entire leadership team for a very, very thorough presentation of our proposed goals for the next school year. I think it's ambitious, it's broad in scope and depth, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind the metrics by which we'll be able to measure our progress. I know we had some questions throughout the presentation. I'll open it up again, but I want to start by saying, this is a process that we've kind of had some back and forth on, and I personally want to thank the superintendent and her team. I appreciate your listening to feedback from the board and from the larger NPS community, especially around the way that we engage with feedback with our teachers and our students. And I appreciate how that's reflected in our goals for the coming school year. Are there any other final comments from board members? Great. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve these recommended goals for the 22-23 school year? Diana, thank you. Seconded by Kara. If there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor of approving the recommended goals and metrics for the 22-23 school year, please say aye or raise your hand. I'll do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's unanimous. Again, thank you to the entire team. I know a lot of work went into that. And a lot of work still needs to be done. So the work has really just begun. Okay, that now takes us to the next item in the agenda, which is, well, the next item was the approval. Okay, so now we'll move on to the approval of the superintendent's revised employment agreement and approval of, to authorize the board chair to sign the agreement on behalf of the board. And as we introduce this discussion, I want to directly address some of the comments we heard earlier about transparency, which I think is important to me and all my colleagues, and definitely appreciated. You know, one of the things that I want to make sure the public understands is that any kind of salary or contractual negotiations are guided by our legal counsel. And during the time of negotiations, any part of the contract is completely theoretical until it is actually agreed upon. And so we want to remain in legal compliance as a school district by not leaking any of those details of the contract beforehand. It's very important, and as a non-lawyer, I do defer to our legal counsel when it comes to those things. As a board member, as a publicly elected official, I prize transparency above all. And so I want to assure the public that the feedback that we've received tonight and in the days beforehand is very much valued. It's very much incorporated into our negotiations and review of the superintendent. As folks may know, or maybe some folks do not know, this process has a built-in review at the end of the school year, where the board goes through and reviews the superintendent's performance on every single goal that we have set. That review does happen in executive session. I want to assure you that we had a very rigorous discussion. We asked tough questions. We met in a lengthy session last week. I think it was almost 3 hours to review and rate the superintendent on each of the goals. That summary of that review and the final rating will be a public document. And we want the public to see exactly what we are seeing. We want this to be as transparent as possible. The year-end report that was presented to the board is also going to be public. That has more details than you can probably read in one night, but it includes a lot of very important data. Like I said, the before and after metrics that I think will provide some very valuable context for the contractual negotiations that we have been engaged in this past few weeks. And so I really want to acknowledge the feedback that we've received tonight, but also to hope as best as I can to assure the public that that feedback is very much valued and incorporated. Okay, so in terms of the revised employment agreement with the superintendent, again, folks may or may not know that our existing agreement with the superintendent does call for a base salary adjustment that is indexed to the rate of inflation, or a 12-month CPI index, which this year would have been around 8.5%. I am extremely happy to report that the superintendent and the board have come to an agreement to a 2% base salary adjustment. Again, we appreciate the superintendent's willingness to work with us. And I think that's a fair compromise, both for her and for the Norwalk School District. And as has been hinted at, the superintendent has indicated a willingness to stay with Norwalk Public Schools for one additional year through 2025. And that's something that the board has considered. It's something that I want to say that I personally support for a lot of the reasons listed by some of the public commenters tonight. I think that we have started a really great program here in Norwalk. It's really been built around this theme of equity. It's something that we've been talking about for a long time. Now we're actually walking the walk. Now we're actually putting things in place to make sure that we have a rising tide that lifts all the ships here in Norwalk, all of our scholars. We have a superintendent who I think models a commitment to lifelong learning and to continuous improvement and to working with the board on all the constructive feedback that we're able to offer her. And so I'd like to throw it out for a motion to approve this new employment agreement and to authorize me to sign it on behalf of the board. Once we have a motion, we can have more discussion if needed. Is there a motion? Diana, seconded by Erica and Godfrey. Is there further discussion?
I just want to say that this administration is executing big, bold, and comprehensive programs, including curriculum updating, maximizing staff retention, and engaging families in a very deliberate manner with the opening of the Family Center. And I think that it's important that we continue on this momentum. We've made some accomplishments. There's more work to do, which is why it's important that we continue on this path.
To continue on Sherry's perspective, the unwavering commitment that Dr. Estrella and his team have shown to putting our youth first and really growing the district in a way that is best for Norwalk has only been evident since the time she started. And looking at next year goals, a few things I'm extremely excited about is our intentional engagement with collaborating with the community. Just listing the examples of different providers, then coupled with the increased support provided by the philanthropic community. I think it speaks volume to what folks in community see and believe in around just a vision that Dr. Estrella has established going forward within our growth plan. All I've seen is evidence that's continued to grow. And even reflecting back on this year, the number of union contracts that were executed successfully is an example of just the growing collaboration and partnerships happening internally. Extremely delighted to push this forward, and I'm just excited to see what next year holds.
Thank you, Godfrey. Mary Ellen? And then Erica.
I am also excited to see what next year holds. I feel we've been in the shadow of the pandemic for the last 2 years, and I truly want to see Dr. Estrella's visions and strategies bear fruit and show the impact in measurable ways, like high school graduation and our SBAC scores. I think her vision and her strategies are world-class. There are some communications with key stakeholders like teachers and parents that could improve, but my vote is to applaud the good and recommend work on certain areas. I am enthusiastically in favor of the contract and the extra year.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Erica? And then Janine, then Diana.
I did want to address head on some of the emails that we received with regard to tonight's vote. And while we can't probably respond to each and every one of them, I did want to acknowledge that there is a misperception or misunderstanding in the community about the levers that Dr. Estrella can pull behind the scenes. She is at the will of state requirements in many instances, city health department requirements. There's differences between what we can do from an operating budget perspective and a capital budget perspective. There are initiatives that are funded specifically because they are backed by nonprofits who are funding them, and with that comes very specific guidelines of how they can be implemented. And then there's a numerous number of contracts that are in place with different providers that she also has to adhere to, and things that are very or seem very obvious from a parent seat and even a teacher seat. Until you sit in this chair, I assure you that you do not appreciate what goes on behind the scenes in central office. I surely did not. And it's, being a Board of Ed member, I truly think is a rite of passage for any parent that wants to learn the system, because it will truly open your eyes to what goes on behind the scenes in central office. And what Dr. Estrella and her team in central office are doing on a day-to-day basis in partnership with our teachers, who are obviously the boots on the ground. And we are so thankful for them and all of the service providers and the nurses and the bus drivers and the janitors who are part of the system. But, I welcome you. Set up a coffee with us. Let's have a conversation about some of the things that go on behind the scenes. We can't respond to every single email, but there is an education there that I think would be very enlightening for many folks.
Thank you, Erica. Janine? Uh-oh, did we lose Janine?
Janine, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I was going to say some of the things that Erica was stating, and just saying that this whole process and, it's very polarizing for the community. You get, as much as you get on one hand that there's too much pressure on our staff and teachers, then we get something else that'll say there's no accountability for the staff on staff. So, we see both sides of it. It comes from both angles. Like Erica said, there's a lot of things that we don't see in the public and makes it very difficult for them to really understand, I think, some of the decisions that are made. I think we can improve with some of our transparency issues. I think we can improve, like Mary Ellen said, with our relationships with our teachers, and we can definitely improve on our perception, at the very least, of some of these things. But I do want to say that there is this, idea of things that can happen that don't necessarily are not able to happen. And that I think that we, it just needs to be stated as much as possible for the public.
Thank you, Janine. Diana?
I'm going to follow up on everything that Erica said, because she touched on a lot of topics and concerns. The public has a lot of concerns, but the same way that what she just said is, you don't know unless you're in our shoes. You don't know unless you're in Dr. Estrella's team's shoes. You don't know unless you're in Dr. Estrella's shoes. There is so much behind the scenes. It's every day. It's 24/7. It's all the time. We hear what we are told, but at the same time, we don't hear what is not said to us. And I actually like Erica's idea of, just having coffee. There's 9 of us, have conversations with multiple ones of us. And there's so much going on. And, we have to follow protocols and regulations and confidentiality. And there's all types of legal things. So, I heard and I've read all the emails. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of that misinformation is wrong. But to clarify things, I think moving forward, now we all know, the one thing that people don't understand is, why are we doing this now? Well, if we go back and know that Dr. Adamowski left us June 30th and Dr. Estrella came on July 1st, it's not something that we just decided to do early. And I know that that's a very big misconception. I mean, that is something that we're discussing. And just seeing how strong she came in and her vision, and to see that she upheld that vision and all the hard work and ideas. And then she put together this great, unbelievable team that has been working so hard. And if you see them and you hear them, they're all very different departments. They're together as one, but they're all very different departments. And there's really, really strong leadership. With that being said, I'm thankful for everything that everyone has done. And I'm in full support of Dr. Estrella. And I look forward to working with everybody a little bit longer.
Thanks, Diana.
Colin, can I add on here?
Oh, yep, of course. Go ahead, Kara.
So I just want to echo what Erica and Diana said. there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I think the public is not aware of, but we do see and read all of the emails. This is, somewhat of a personnel matter. So there's, as mentioned, confidentiality around this topic. But I just wanted to say that it'll be 20 years this summer that I've lived in Norwalk. And so I've seen a lot of superintendents cycle through our school system. And it's been tough. I've, had 2 kids, one of whom is still going through. One of whom, my oldest, I pulled out for high school and sent her to a private school. When Dr. Estrella came in, we were at the very beginning of a pandemic, something that no one here on this call has ever experienced. And I think she navigated it beautifully. I was so impressed with how NPS handled it and how Dr. Estrella handled it. And that's a large part of the reason why I ran for the Board of Ed, because I saw her vision, I saw what she was doing, I saw positive change happening in this school system, and I wanted to get behind her and to support her in it. And so I am also fully in support and grateful that Dr. Estrella is wanting to stay here in our community for another year on her contract.
Thank you, Kara. And just to pull the thread that Diana hinted at earlier, there's a very mechanical approach to this process. I think folks realize that the timing is similar to last year. Our fiscal year ends, the city's fiscal year ends on June 30th. New contracts start on July 1st, and that's why these negotiations are timed around this time. And again, this is a process that could go south very easily. This is a contract that ties a salary adjustment to inflation if we are not able to reach an agreement. And it was really a pleasure to work with Dr. Estrella and really in good faith negotiate an adjustment that I think is extremely fair, both to her and to the district. So again, there's parts of this role, this process that are built in, and this is tonight we're seeing the part of that come to fruition with this contract revision. If there are no other comments, Dan, I think your hand is still up, right? Not up again. Okay. We do have the motion on the floor. I can call it for a vote now. All in favor of approving this revised employment agreement and authorizing the chair to sign it on behalf of the board, please say aye or raise your hand. Okay, I counted 9, which makes it unanimous. As chair, I do want to thank not just Dr. Estrella and her team, but my colleagues on the board for really making this process doable. It's not as easy as we make it look, trust me. And so thank you to everyone. Thank you for taking the time tonight for this special meeting. That is the last item on our agenda. So if there is a motion to adjourn, Erica, seconded by Godfrey, all in favor? We are hereby adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Thanks again to everyone. Have a wonderful, safe evening, and we'll see you again here sometime soon.
Good evening, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, everyone.